The New York Knicks announced today that they have decided to fire their coach, Tom Thibodeau. Thibodeau was the most successful Knicks head coach, I would say, since Jeff Van Gundy. He had a great winning record with the Knicks the last 5 years. In that time period, his record was 226 wins and 174 losses. So the Knicks were playing 500 basketball with him as the coach. In the 5 years as head coach of the Knicks went to the playoffs 4 out of 5 times. They got out of the first round 2 years in a row. That's how impressive that was. Actually, I think it was 3 years in a row. Yep, 3 years in a row that they'd gotten out of the first round, which is an impressive streak. This year, they had reached the conference finals with Tibbs as their head coach. So overall, his 5 years was a great 5 year run with the Knicks. And like I said, the best run with the Knicks since Jeff Van Gundy. So he did play a role in getting the Knicks back to being a respectable, relevant franchise. Before Tibbs got there, they were a laughingstock. So I like to give him his credit that he definitely deserves that. He made them respectable again. And I would say with Tibbs, to me, he's like that coach that if you are starting from scratch, you're starting at the bottom, he's the guy that you actually would want him to coach your team because he can actually build a foundation for you. He can put it together and everything. It's kind of like building a house. But once the house is built, he's not the guy that can maintain it. He doesn't have that ability to maintain the house, and the house will crumble under the maintenance that he's doing with the house. It'll decay, parts will get old, rot. You'll have all this stuff happening. So that I think that's the downside with Tibbs. He can build up a team, but once he gets to a certain threshold, he can't get it beyond that. He doesn't have the ability. So I would say that is like the biggest weakness of Tibbs. To me, he reminds me of like these coaches that were able to build up an elite team, but they couldn't win a championship. A few examples I can give of that is Doug Collins during the late 80s with the Chicago Bulls. He was able to make them into a relevant franchise from being a lottery franchise. But once they were starting to become an elite team, he couldn't get them over that championship hump. He didn't know how to create a system that could play championship basketball, a winning system in that regard. He was able to get to the conference finals, but he couldn't get them over that hump. I would say Del Harris is another example from the 90s that you look at him with the Lakers, with the Shaq Kobe Lakers during his time period there, that he was able to build the Lakers up from being a lottery team after Magic left to being a relevant team that was able to get Shaq. But once they got Shaq, he couldn't take them to the championship level. He just couldn't. He didn't have the ability to lift them to be a championship team. They were a great regular season team, an elite team during the regular season, but during the playoffs, they just couldn't get over the hump, and hence why he got fired. And then they would eventually get Phil Jackson to come in there after having a brief stint with Kurt Rambis. But you get what I'm saying. So I think that Tibbs firing, it does look bad on paper when you look at what he did, but I think going forward, there's not really much he was going to be able to improve on with this Knicks team. The one of the biggest weaknesses of Tibbs, I would say, is he's not good at developing young talent. He's not good at developing a bench. And these things always come back to haunt you during the playoffs when you need depth, you need a bench, you need certain guys to step up, especially young guys to fill in the void off the bench. So Tibbs is not good at any of those things. He's not good at player development, not good at developing a bench. And these things hurt during the playoffs. They can get exploited, and I feel they did during the Pacers series. They definitely did get exploited. And I definitely get why the Knicks canned him as much as it looks like a bad move. But I think it was the right decision to do. I also think the the big reason why the Knicks finally decided to part ways with Tibbs, despite giving him an extension last year, was the way the Knicks lost the series to the Pacers. I do think he made a lot of coaching mistakes, especially in game one when they should have won that game, when they were up at like 14 or 15 with like a few minutes left. That came down to coaching. He made some boneheaded moves in that regard. Like if they had just allowed the shot clock to expire on several of his possessions, the Knicks would have won that game. That's all it took, was just holding the ball, wasting time, and they win that game. I think ESPN had statistics saying that when you're up by that much with only a few minutes left, you have a 99.8% chance of winning. But Tibbs managed to fuck that up to cost them that game. So I think he made a lot of boneheaded moves during that series. Game two, not calling a timeout and having Jalen Brunson just pull up for a desperation three when he had a timeout. That was stupid and risky. So that cost them. Not say if he had drawn a play, they would have won, but they would have had a better chance of winning, forcing overtime and possibly changing the course of that series. And you just look at overall the series, that how he wasn't able to come up with a defensive scheme to stop the Pacers, which is a bad look because Tibbs is supposed to be a great defensive coach. This is what he's good at. And he still couldn't figure out how to solve the problem with the Pacers who are a high-scoring team. But his job has always been based on being a great defensive guru, but he had no real strategies on how to stop them. Granted, there were like 2 games where it looked like the Knicks had it figured out, but he couldn't do it consistently for a 7-game series, figure out defensive schemes, how to stop them. And that comes down to his coaching. So he failed miserably in that series, and I get why the Knicks fired him, because with the team they had and with the matchup with the Pacers, they should have gone to the finals, at least gone to the NBA Finals this year. And you don't know if they'll have a good shot to go back next year. That's not a given, but the East will be wide open, I think. I believe so. Pacers obviously will be back with their team, but you look at the rest of the East, Milwaukee, I think they're done for sure now with Dame being hurt, and Giannis, it looks like he's going to be traded. And you look at the Celtics with Tatum, they're definitely not going to be competing next year for a title. The rest of the East, you look at with Orlando, I don't see them as a title contender. They're a young, rising team. Same with the Pistons. They are a rising team, but I wouldn't view them as a title contender. Granted, maybe they make some free agent moves, but my point is the East is wide open. But will Tibbs be able to take advantage of that? I don't think so. I just think the Pacers series really exposed him that he didn't know what he was doing, and he wasn't the guy ultimately that can get the job done for the Knicks. Now, I don't know who the hell the Knicks hire in this situation. Who will they go after? Maybe Mike Malone, since he's a New Yorker, he can handle the atmosphere. That's who I think they'll go aggressively after, but will he commit there? I don't know. So it'll be interesting, but that's what I wanted to point out.